What are some of the worst brand new cars that you can buy? That's what we're going to find out. Welcome to Car Corner, where we help you, the consumer, master the process of car buying and car ownership. I tested some excellent new cars in 2023, but there were also some very serious duds that I would never recommend anyone buy. But before getting into the worst vehicles that I tested this past year, remember, if you enjoy and get value out of this video, make sure to subscribe and turn notifications. So let's start off with the first vehicle on the list, which is the Toyota BZ4X. Now I want to start by saying that this is not actually a terrible car. The BZ4X, or the BZ4X, is Toyota's first all-electric vehicle, and in many ways it is pretty decent. It drives perfectly fine and works fine as an everyday SUV, and it has the longest battery warranty and the best battery life guarantee of any EV, which does make it somewhat attractive. The issue is that it's just not good enough. The driving range is a disappointment, only around 220 miles or 360 kilometers with all-wheel drive, and it quickly drops from there in extreme weather. The charging speed is also not the fastest, and it's also pretty expensive when you compare it against other EVs that do perform a lot better. Overall, you just get the impression that Toyota was not really trying very hard with this one. The BZ4X and its platform cousin, the Subaru Solterra, just feel like half-baked efforts to buy time until Toyota releases a proper EV in the next few years, and that's why I just have a hard time recommending it. The next vehicle on the list that was extremely disappointing to review this past year was the Dodge Hornet. The Hornet is Dodge's first all-new SUV in around a decade, and I wanted to give this one a chance. But it's just really shocking how Dodge could have gotten so much just so wrong. For some reason, Dodge prioritized making this a performance SUV with a lot of power and sharp handling, as if that's what really matters most to most SUV buyers. The Hornet basically fails at every important quality that an SUV should have. It is terribly cramped inside with a small cargo area, the ride quality is stiff, the engine and transmission are not that smooth, the technology is a bit of a mess, and the pricing is ridiculously high. And the build quality is questionable at best. The Hornet is the Dodge version of the Alfa Romeo Tonale. Both companies are part of the Stellantis group. And if you're thinking that both Dodge and Alfa Romeo sounds like a combination for terrible reliability, I really can't blame you. The next vehicle that was a major disappointment to review this past year was the Volkswagen Taos. Now I've already criticized this one in some of my other videos, so I'll quickly go over why. This one is just not worth wasting your money on. The Taos is a relatively new model, and yet the reliability has already proven to be a problem. It was just ranked as one of the least reliable in the Consumer Reports reliability study. It is also not very comfortable or smooth. It has a jerky dual clutch automated manual transmission, and it's also rather overpriced, so basically just stay away. My criticisms for the next vehicle that I reviewed this past year are pretty similar, and that vehicle is the BMW X1. The X1 had been completely redesigned for 2023, and yet in many ways, BMW seemed to have taken a few steps backward. They added a new dual clutch automated manual transmission which, like the Taos, I found to be surprisingly jerky and lurchy, as these transmissions tend to be. It just wasn't as comfortable as I was expecting from a BMW. The interior was also a bit of a disappointment. The tech was frustrating to use with no physical controls, and everything had to be controlled using a very small touchscreen. So in just about every way, the X1 felt like a disappointment, and it is a noticeable step down from the far better BMW X3, or better yet the X5, which I would strongly recommend stepping up to if you really want to buy a BMW. Another vehicle that I was really disappointed with when I tested this past year was another luxury SUV, and that vehicle is the Maserati Rali. This is another brand new model that Maserati introduced in the past year, and frankly I just could not find any reason why anybody would buy one over something else. It is just not as luxurious as I was expecting a Maserati to be, nor is it as stylish or as great to drive. And I test drove the Trofeo version, which comes with a bespoke high-performance Maserati V6 engine that makes over 500 horsepower. It was certainly really fast and fun to drive, but I quickly came way back down to reality when I saw the eye-popping price tag, which was over $150,000. That's an insane amount of money to spend on such a small and underwhelming SUV, especially when you can buy a far better Porsche Cayenne or Macan for very similar money or even a lot less. And knowing how terrible Maserati resale value is, pretty much worse than any other car brand, well, this one is just an absolute no way. And now moving on to the next vehicle on the list, we have the Jeep Compass. I tested the updated Compass earlier in the year, hoping that the updates Jeep made to the engine, transmission, and the interior would change my opinion of it, but sadly that didn't happen. Jeep has tried to improve the Compass, but all of the updates have just made it horribly expensive and just overpriced. The one that I tested was over $45,000. 45 grand for a low quality, unreliable vehicle that depreciates rapidly is just not a wise purchase. So this is another one that's just a big no. The next vehicle just might be the second worst one that I test drove this past year, and that vehicle is the Mercedes EQB. The EQB is an electric version of the Mercedes GLB, a compact crossover SUV. The issue with the EQB is that it's just totally underwhelming and really overpriced. The driving range is really disappointing, barely able to go around 220 miles or 360 kilometers on a charge for the all-wheel drive version. It's not really that comfortable to drive or that luxurious. The controls are a frustrating mess, and it's just hideously expensive. I believe the one that I test drove was just over $80,000, and that's just insane. I think even Mercedes acknowledges this, which is why they've introduced a more basic two-wheel drive version that has a lot less power, a little bit more range, and a lower price. But it's still a lot more expensive than far better EVs that you can buy. So it's just a little, too late for the EQB. And that brings us to the worst vehicle that I test drove this past year. And without question, that vehicle is the Vin Fast VF8. Now I know some of you are saying, Vin what exactly? Vin Fast is a new automaker to North America from Vietnam. They make electric SUVs and have just started entering North America. I briefly tested their mid-sized SUV, the VF8, at an event earlier in the year. And while the vehicle itself seemed actually okay, it did feel a bit rough around the edges, and like a first attempt from a new company that just doesn't have a whole lot of experience. Now that might be fine if it was ridiculously cheap. I mean, hey, if you could buy a very spacious, powerful, and a fairly advanced SUV for, say, around 25 to 30 grand, it might be worth taking a shot, especially given that it does come with a comprehensive 10-year warranty, which is pretty impressive. But the thing is, it's not cheap. In fact, at around $60,000, it's a bit of a joke. I mean, who is going to gamble on an unknown brand with no reputation for that kind of money? Yes, it does come with an amazing warranty, but who even knows if Vin Fast is even going to be around that long to even honor the warranty? Sorry, I'm just not sold, and I doubt very many consumers will be either. So there you have it, the worst vehicles that I tested this past year. And if you want to check out what are the best vehicles that I test drove, including my pick for the best car of the year, I'm going to put a link to that video up in the corner. But let me know what you thought of this video, and if you enjoyed this video, make sure to like and subscribe. You can also follow me on Instagram, and if you need additional car buying advice, recommendations, or help with getting a great deal on your next new car purchase, make sure to visit Car Help Canada. Thanks so much for watching, and see you next time.